Okay, so I think we should officially get started. So please join me in welcoming the Chief Customer Officer and Commercial Leadership Officer of the Coca-Cola Company, Julie Hamilton. Come on up, Julie. Come on over here, Julie.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? All right. Well, David, thank you first for that kind introduction, and thank you to you and to your team and to all of those that you recognized in your opening comments. We really, really appreciate all the time and effort you put in to make such an exceptional event. That was a little, just get everybody pumped up.
That's confirmation, Julie.
Exactly. It's great to be with all of you in this beautiful place that's a miracle in the desert. It's also wonderful to see all of our Coca-Cola customers out there, and it's great to be with all of you who are not Coca-Cola customers. At least not yet, but we've got time, so let's talk while we're here. The theme of our gathering, as you said, is the power of partnerships. And that says so much in so few words. It defines how the businesses we are today. It defines and points to a way of the future. And it brings the force that pulls us together here in Dubai. There's so many leaders, so many thinkers and entrepreneurs from around the world who are in this room. I read a quote recently that said, "Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success." And I think we see that in this Global Restaurant Leadership Conference. Last year was a great beginning. This year, our second year, shows great progress. First, as you said, we sold out well ahead of time, trending each week ahead of last year. In all, and I'll get the exact number for you, there are 1,462 participants, representing 362 different restaurant companies from 54 countries. So give yourself a hand. Importantly, half of those registered are senior leaders. And our sponsoring companies continues to grow. You mentioned just a few of them. We have 70 sponsors and 5 founding sponsors now on board. So this second year, it's progress we can build on. But I think it's really our ability to work together, to think together, and to find solutions together that will definitely put us on that path to success. At the same time, partnership, it's just one of those words that people throw around rather loosely. You won't hear anybody argue against it. You won't find many who say they can win without it. But, you know, when you think about it, what does it really mean? It can mean nothing, or it can mean everything. It can be an obligatory statement of just good intentions, or, and I think importantly, it can be the way that we all together thrive, that we even survive in a world that is changing so fast and in so many ways, and infuses challenge with a real sense of urgency. Times of great change, as they say, are always time of big choices. You know, we can stick our heads down, stick to the game plan, and assume and hope that things will eventually return to normal, or we can take on the realities of the new normal, and we can create a new game plan, one with the power to move us forward, but with the flexibility for quick turns and corrections. The bold choices that this industry and everyone here in this room is making highlights the partnership we see across the food service ecosystem. It's the kind of partnership that will help us address the forces that are shaping our industry. Technology, volatility, sustainability, adaptability, unpredictability, and increasingly, that revolution between our brands and our consumers. In our 4 days here in Dubai, we're going to dive deeply into all that and more. Again, thank you for taking your time out of your already busy schedules to be here. David and I believe it will be well spent. You'll find new ideas, new solutions, and make new relationships and partnerships. And along the way, if last night was any indication, I think you'll make some lasting memories. So with that, let's get started. It's my great pleasure to introduce our first keynote speaker. Now, people outside the industry may be not familiar with the Middleby name. But at any time when they go to a restaurant, odds are that some part of their meal was prepared on the company's commercial cooking equipment. Around the world, Middleby is in 1 of every 3 restaurants. And with the recent acquisitions, including of Viking Range, the company is now in residential kitchens, perhaps even some of yours, and most likely many of yours. Our speaker is a native of Lebanon with a master's degree from the Kellogg School of Management. He began his career as a consultant. He moved to healthcare and then to commercial food equipment. He joined Middleby in 1996 as a division president, was promoted to COO, and in 2000 became CEO. Under his leadership, a struggling 100-year-old company with a market cap of $15 million has grown to become an industry powerhouse with a market cap of over $7 billion. Do that math. As part of a company that likes to say it always keeps customer needs on quote-unquote the front burner, he knows just a bit about the power of partnerships. He says, in fact, that he spends 30% of every day on customers and on connectivity, understanding trends, understanding his customers, and making sure his company stays relevant. Or as he put it, I don't ever want to become what the horse and cart were to the automobile. He is admittedly an impatient driver of continuous change who still, importantly, follows advice that he got early in his career, and that is, don't fear failure, fear success. Please roll the video.
We are facing a crisis of epic proportions. More than 65 million people have been driven from their homes, which is more than any time since the Second World War.
How will they find income opportunities? How can they rebuild their life? How can they feed their family?
You can't sit far away and say, I'll just write a check and that's over. The problems are real, they're on the ground, and it's every day. I would say get on the ground, go see the conditions that these people are living in, and they will understand what kind of an impact they can have much better.
We need all the ideas, all the resources, all the innovation to bring dignity to people.
Saleem's approach is not trying to overly understand a problem, but go from a problem to a solution. The passion he has in terms of giving back, and giving back in ways that I would consider more non-traditional.
You mentioned that these are going to be sent to Puerto Rico. I imagine logistics are tough to get things to the people that need them. How are you working through this, and what's happening out there this morning?
Well, it's complicated to get to basically Puerto Rico. We're basically charting a plane, and we're going there, and we're working with the Red Cross. We're working with Hispanic Federation.
Saleem not only saw the need, he went there himself. He interviewed many of these refugees, went back to his own company, developed the oven, and delivered those ovens to these refugees in person, which helped these women to cook their food, charge their cell phones without any electricity at all, which is totally unavailable.
A complete meal can be cooked with just 2 pieces of wood. You light that, it creates heat, you can boil water, and the flame is shooting out. It's insulated so you can touch the oven.
والله اختراع كتير حلو يعني في ظل انعدام الكهرباء.
بيوفر لي مصاري كتير يعني بالشتوية، بنتدفى عليها بنطبخ.
مو خطر، ثابت تقيل، مو ساخن من على الطراف،
وما في خطر على اولادي ولا على الخيمة ولا على شيء خالص.
ممتازة على الطاقة الشمسية، بتوفر على الكهرباء.
So if you ask me, there's a need for this in that community? Of course.
He's applying the same principle to giving with the refugees. He's not throwing them stuff. He's actually trying to understand exactly what it is that they need. He's actually looking at what would make the most impact in the future.
It's not just an example of giving back, it's an example of innovating in a different way. You know, has social and cultural impact.
I want in a small way to change the world. It has always been my purpose.
All right, come on up here. Well, before we introduce him, will you two gentlemen please come on out? You saw maybe, hopefully you didn't see a lot of it, but let's give them a round of applause for doing all of that work, right? Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Thank you
very much.
All right,
okay.
Everyone excited?
I'm excited.
Okay, me too. I'm looking forward to it. So please join David and myself in welcoming Middleby Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Selim Bassoul.
Welcome, Celine. That was just a beautiful video.
Julie. Wow, it's a big room. Looking all of those people, many of you I know. I look at familiar faces. Julie, thank you for an amazing introduction.
Thank you.
I wrote some notes to talk about the journey and how we got there. From Lebanon to Turkey to Jordan to Puerto Rico. It all started in 2011. A priest asked me to build a school for girls in a remote village in my home country, Lebanon. I was thrilled. Why? Education is a top priority for me. And as you know, simply put, education is the key to lifting families out of poverty. So the idea of building a school for those girls by providing free and continuous education was something that was very thrilling to me. It gave equality to those girls in our society. So the schoolhouse was built. A few years later, my wife Andrea and I were invited to go back to the village and be honored by the mayor and the people of the village. We're very happy. Until a mother stood up and said, "We are not sending our girls to the school." I was devastated. She said, teachers were coming from the coast to the village, an hour away from where we built the schoolhouse, and they were not showing up. When the weather was bad, they wouldn't come up. So as we drove back from that village, Andrea and I were saying, what went wrong? How did I fail? I spent all night thinking about it. And I kept on rethinking back and back what went wrong on that project. I felt like a failure. I broke my own rules. As a CEO, 25 years in the industry, and as CEO of my company and our people here, when we launch a project, when we built Middleby, the way we built it, by going on the ground, meeting our customers, understanding their needs. So we built a company from basically ventless to robotics to automation by being there with our customers.
I did not do this on the school project. Let's fast forward. Christmas 2015. We went back to Beirut, Lebanon, and everybody was talking about the 2 million Syrian refugees who crossed from Syria to Lebanon. They were all in refugee camps in dire conditions. I felt a need to go up. So I drove the 2 hours up to the Bekaa Valley. My wife and my family were very uneasy. We had just been blessed with a 2-week-old baby. My wife was concerned about bringing back diseases and illnesses. They were concerned about my safety and security. So when I got to the camp, let me give you a big picture of the camp. I'm sure you've seen it on TV, but I'm going to give you my personal feeling from the camp. It's a lot better and starker than the TV pictures. I got to the camp. There is most probably 10,000 people in the camp I visited. Mud. It's Christmas. Mud on the floor, on the ground. Tent after tent. Overcrowded. Children barefoot. Cold. And the first thing they did, they rushed at me and started hugging on my pants. Mosquitoes, insects, flies. So I walked in the first tent, and the tent, at that time, I remember because I went back to those tents many times, was run by a lady called Zainab. Zainab lived in a tent with 30 other people in that tent. So you walk in the tent, there's nothing on the tent. It's basically empty, and you see nothing but women and children. Children coughing, and there is no possession except a light bulb. Tent after tent, there is a light bulb. So I asked Zainab, how do they prepare food? How do they eat? And she said, we have not eaten in 3 days. I said, why? She said, well, it's been raining in Lebanon. Wood is wet. We cook on open fire. It took us 8 hours to get out of the camp to go get wood. And in the winter, we're afraid to venture out of the camp. I said, how would you survive? Mostly on bread, no hot meal. I then asked about the light bulb. In every tent, there is a light bulb. I said, well, why don't you, if you have a light bulb, why don't you go get an electric stove? The answer was the light bulb was costing them $35 for one light bulb. Every tent gets, from the United Nations, roughly a ration of $70 to $100. A third of it is spent on the light bulb. So as I was leaving the camp, a couple approached me. It was Fatima and her husband. Fatima was 7 months old pregnant. She was 7 months pregnant. They were worried about bringing a baby into this world. Dire condition, hunger, cold. I left touched. I immediately cut short my trip. We hop on a plane and head to Chicago. We never spent New Year's Eve in Lebanon, and we went. The baby and my wife. What do you think I did on the plane? I drew the oven. I said, I would be back with an oven. 9-hour flight, I drew the oven. What would the oven would do? What are the features? What are the benefits? Exactly what I would do if I went to visit our customers. The way you would do it, that's why you're here, you're successful. You don't build a project without going to your customers. Forget the schoolhouse. I would not repeat the schoolhouse example. I immediately went to our engineers and I asked them to build the oven. We started putting features and benefits. They designed an oven, that's our core competency, that had features. Now, If I didn't go to the refugee camp, I didn't know about the light bulb. So the oven you saw was the 5th iteration of our oven. So I came back with the oven, came back to see Zainab. I saw Huda, Hiyam, tents. I went to so many camps, so many tents, giving ovens and getting feedback. I could tell you what happened when I gave the oven. One, the oven was supposed to be outdoor. Now we had to bring it indoor. So it was smoke management, toxic fumes. Children couldn't get burned on the oven. The oven couldn't tip. All of this I didn't know because the ground is not level. So you can't have a pot. The other thing we started doing is we added accessories so they can cook pies and pizzas and bread. Turn it over. It becomes a wok for rice, meat. I could tell you, we learned a lot. We were not perfect, but through the iteration, we became better and better and better. It became the best prized possession of those people. So for me, this was a project that changed people's life in a small way. It didn't get them out of the camp, but it gave them a sliver of hope, a sense of normalcy. So in September, this past September, I'm watching TV, and the hurricane hits Puerto Rico. I'm watching. Puerto Rico is 3.4 million people. 60% are now homeless. 80% of the island has no electricity and no clean water. I felt the urge to help. I felt the urge to go back to Puerto Rico. So at that time, to get to Puerto Rico was a logistical nightmare. So I chartered a plane. I had to get permission to get into Puerto Rico. We didn't know where to sleep. We couldn't sleep. There's no hotels. So if you're in the hotel business, everything is shut down. There's no electricity. No radar. Just to let you know. I couldn't find a pilot and a plane to take us to Puerto Rico at the time. No radar. Electric grid is down. It's visual tower control. That's why they restricted flying into Puerto Rico. How? Why? Because it's visual. The tower control had to see you coming in to let you land. We couldn't get pilots. Pre-complex. I said, I'm going to go. My team came with me. We landed in Puerto Rico, and what we saw from the plane, everything is flooded. It's like a bomb that hit devastated Puerto Rico. So we landed, everything water. It was, I remember, Darcy, you were with me. It was pouring rain, heavily pouring rain. So the first thing we met was the Red Cross, the head of the Red Cross. She said, Saleem, it's amazing that you came. We need that oven. We've seen the oven on YouTube. That oven is something that we need. People are not having hot meals. They cannot boil water. So we started going from neighborhood to neighborhood, and we saw people in shelters and in parks eating ready-to-eat meal, no hot meals. We started basically, we had chefs with us that volunteered their time, and we started cooking in parks. And I remember Maria. Maria started, we brought some beans and rice and hash brown and corned beef, and they came and we started cooking. You saw in the video. Amazing sense of pride with that oven, sense of love. So Maria was starting to cook for everybody. So we went to another neighborhood and another neighborhood. Those people are like you and me. Those are not refugees because of wars. They were displaced because of natural disasters. So I found, when we left, that we brought a solution, both to the refugees and now applied to Puerto Rico. And now Cisco, which I thank you for wanting to bring this to Haiti. Let me give you the feeling I had of people being homeless. My wife will talk a little bit later about homelessness, a little bit about my case, but I'll tell you about the sense of being homeless. It's a brutal feeling. It's a feeling of hopelessness. It's a feeling of emptiness, no future. It's like you hit your destiny. Irrespective of what you think about the political side of refugees, there is a human side that struck a chord with me. That's why I helped. That's why this oven became a unique thing. A sliver of hope, a sense of normalcy. Now let's compare the schoolhouse project and the oven project. What was different? Three things, three lessons. On the schoolhouse project, what did I do? What did we do on the schoolhouse project? Excuse me? We wrote a check. It's important to write a check. I'm not minimizing and advocating without. But writing a check alone was not the solution. I wrote a check. I didn't see the impact. Personal involvement creates a multiplier effect. Nothing like personal involvement. The number 2 lesson understand core competency. I know nothing about building a school. I should have most probably, before I spent the money, brought a principal, brought a consulting firm and said, Saleem, to build a school, you need to make sure you have full-time professors. You have to make sure that it's accredited. It's safe in the school for those girls. I didn't do any of this. On the refugee project, it was core competency. I knew today, if you have a need anywhere around the world, whether it was Mexico City where we sent ovens, I knew the solution was perfect. That's our core competency. Number 3, the third lesson. Get on the ground. Without being me on the ground, it did not get the excitement of our people. I understood the needs. I understood all the things that I need to put in the oven. So when you look at the oven, we have basically the light bulb, the charging. We look at this. So writing a check is not enough. It doesn't create the multiplier effect. Use your core competency. Use your skills. And finally, get on the ground. So as I conclude, and we talk about a little bit about this journey of my philanthropy, I failed at the schoolhouse project, never repeated it. So as entrepreneurs, I'm going to leave you with the following message. You have time. I have a 2-year-old baby at home. We run a 10,000 employee company. We're global. We're busy. I still find the time. So you have the time. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. 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 Thank you.
Thank you, Saleem. Can I get you to just stay on the stage for just a moment here? I think it's very obvious. I love the multiplier comment that you made and the difference that you've made around the world. And one of the things, many things I love about Saleem, very inspirational to me personally and certainly to all of us, but you continue to do it. When the Puerto Rico disaster happened, immediately Saleem is into action. It's just so inspiring. So what I just felt was so appropriate that he mentioned the multiplier effect. I wish I had known that a little bit earlier. That's just such a great word to what I want to do here for a moment, is to recognize, but most importantly, inspire other people the people in this room that obviously are of great means and of great talent to maybe do some multiplier effect. So what I wanted to do is do something special for you. But to do that, I want to bring up a special guest to help me do that. And that special guest is your wife. So if you can please join me in bringing to the stage for a moment, Mrs.
Did I do
Andrea
anything wrong?
Bassoul. No, no, you did not.
What did you do?
Welcome, Andrea. So thank you so much for being here. And Saleem is not aware of this, but Andrea knows about 6 months ago I reached out to her and a few executives, Darcy and Dave Brewer at Middleby, and said, the multiplier effect is just the perfect description, that I wanted to develop a special award. And the purpose of the award would be to recognize, but again, most importantly, inspire other people to follow the lead of Saleem in making a difference in those not as fortunate of us around the world. And Andrew, before we officially recognize Saleem, I thought it might be interesting if you could maybe just share a personal story. I know we talked a little bit about this, but I heard so many stories about Saleem that there's dozens and dozens, but maybe you could just take a moment and give us a little personal insight to Saleem.
Hello, everyone. Let me tell you about my husband, Selim. He did charity work in secret, even before I met him, and he was never comfortable being recognized. I am sure many of you in this audience are doing charity work secretly. A few years ago, a dear friend of ours said to me, Saleem should be talking about his philanthropy because of his non-traditional way of doing charity. It took him a long time to recognize the importance of opening up and inspiring others. We discovered the importance of opening up regarding our philanthropy when I convinced my husband to open up about his dyslexia. After the Wall Street Journal article was published back in May, we received hundreds of messages from parents wanting us to share Saleem's experience, to give them hope as their children were struggling in school and in life. I was expecting few wives calling me about dyslexia, but nobody did. It's still challenging, trust me. So how do I relate this oven to my husband? I always tell you, Saleem, you're a light in a box. But I will tell you how I relate. In 1975, when the civil war broke out in my country, Lebanon, Saleem and his family were displaced. They were refugees. They were homeless in their home country. He experienced the fear and instability. I know it left him marked through his life. He lived it, he understood it, and he reacted. That's his DNA. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. That was a great story. So hold on. So Saleem, it's a great honor on behalf of all of us in this room, because we are the Global Restaurant Leadership Conference community, to recognize you with the Selim Bassoul Humanitarian Award. And going forward, with your help, each year we're going to recognize an individual that's doing the things that you're doing, the multiplier effect. So if you can come over here, if you can bring up, thank you very much. It's kind of heavy, I know, and I'm gonna have, can you hold that for me? So this is a beautiful, let's give you a round of applause. Holy cow. I recognize how darn heavy this thing is. So, Andrea, you, I know, commissioned this, and Dave and Darcy to do this beautiful award. So the idea that this will be a traveling award. So each year, this award has to come back to Global Restaurant Leadership Conference with another name on it of an individual, the multiplier effect, Saleem. So this is the big, heavy award. We do have another award that you can take home and put in your office. So with that, can we give Saleem another round of applause? And Andrea, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
That's a beautiful award.
Yes.
It's cool.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you again, Celine.
Thank you very much.
I'll let you take that. And here, let me, yes. Okay, well, very good. All right, that was a lot of fun.